To Oiler fans, earlier this week I was able to address the media and all our great fans, and they said that we're working on a plan and we'd roll that plan out when we felt it was the right time, and today is the first step of this plan, and I'm really excited about it, and I know the Oiler fans will embrace this first step and will be a great step for us going into this hockey season. I want to first start, though, on the business side, and I want everyone to know that I've had lengthy discussions with Patrick LaForge last night and again today, and Patrick LaForge will be moving on, will not be with the organization, but I want to recognize what he's done over the last 15 to 16 years. He's had a huge contribution to this organization, and he's certainly going to be around. When we open up Rogers Place, we want him there. He's going to be there like a lot of the other great alumni Oilers. But when we look at the business side, we've got some great people stepping up to the plate here. We have Stu McDonald. Stu's been with us for a number of years, and we'll be focusing on the ticketing side, the revenue side, the marketing side. We have Daryl Bosencool, who's been in charge of the finances. He'll be working in the transition into the new building and operations. We have Bob Black, who is the person that has led Rogers Place and will be working on new business as we go forward. And there'll be a lot more announcements there with Rogers Place and everything else coming out of the building. That's going to be such an exciting time for downtown Edmonton and everything that the Cates Group has done in that area. And to change the focus to the hockey side that everyone's so excited about, and the person left to me here, Peter, I don't have to talk about what he's done in the National Hockey League. His record speaks for itself. He had great tender in Boston, going to the Stanley Cup twice, winning the Stanley Cup. And I really got to know Peter a few years ago, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of how we got introduced, because it starts to roll out the type of person Peter is. And we were all so successful in 2010 Olympics, and when I went to Steve Yzerman to see if he wanted to lead that great management group, he said, yes, I really want to do that, and gave me all the reasons how we're going to be that much better in Russia than we were in Vancouver, and that did come true. But the one thing he said, Bob, I want to add a voice. We have a great group, but I want a person to bring in new ideas into this group. And I went, Steve, you know, we've got a pretty good group. It's been a great group. We've won. And he convinced me to bring in Peter Chiarelli. And I can tell you through all of those meetings, Peter put himself in a position to be a part of that group, added to that camaraderie to have our team play the way it did in Sochi. And that's the type of person Peter is. He's going to lead this group. He's going to lead hockey. He's the president of hockey operations, the general manager, and he's going to make sure that he has strong people around him. And I know that we're going to get this organization headed in the right direction. So Peter, it's so great to have you, your family. You know, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. I think the other thing, this has gone so quickly, one of the keys that we talked about was, you know, how's your team going to play? If we can, teams as quick as we got this contract done, I think that'll be great for the fans.
Thanks, Bob. First, I'd like to thank Daryl Cates, Bob, and Kevin. This happened really quickly, and one of the reasons it happened really quickly is because I've known them from before, and I really like them, I respect them, and I respect their hockey minds, and I respect them as people, and it made it very easy to become comfortable with the situation. So thank you, Bob and Kevin and Daryl, if you're watching. It's been a real whirlwind, as Bob said, but it seems like it's today Friday, so a week and a half ago I got bad news, and today I got terrific news. So I'm really excited to be part of this organization. It has a long and rich history. I come from an Original Six team with a long and rich history, so I know to respect the legacy, to embrace the legacy, and the same is going to apply here. Having said all that, I have thoughts, I've got ideas, I've got a lot of things going on in my head. Once I started talking to Bob and to Kevin, each passing day you get more energized and you get more ideas. So I'm really excited to be part of this. We took a tour of the arena project and it's unbelievable. It's overwhelming. My wife was down and I've never seen anything like it, especially where it is, right smack in the middle of downtown. So excited to be part of that. This team has got a lot of good pieces, and the way I handle these things, the way I manage is there's nothing really flashy about it. Although we've, in the past I've made some trades and I'm not afraid to do that. But it's about getting to know the people, getting to know the players, really instilling an attitude and a philosophy about winning, and the sacrifices that it takes to win, sacrifices on the ice and off the ice, the mentality that we all have to embrace. And there's really nothing magical about it, and there's nothing magical about me. It's about hard work, it's about connecting, communicating, and that's what I plan to do. And I have a lot of resources around me, starting with Daryl, Bob, Kevin, and all the existing people that I will meet with and go through. But it's how you take the next step, and it has to be a measured approach, and that's kind of the way I operate. So it's a real honor and pleasure to be part of this, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I think as far as doing my schedule, I think I've booked the next 3 days, and that's it. That's all I know. So anyways, thank you, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Peter. We'll now take questions from the floor. If you again, please put up your hand, and once I acknowledge you, we'll go ahead. First question for Jean Principe.
Hi, Peter. Welcome to Edmonton. Just if you could maybe describe what the challenges might be like, or how excited you are about having, I guess, 2 jobs. And Bob, a little bit of the process of making changes regarding Kevin and Craig.
I'll start off here, Peter. First of all, on those changes, it's very clear that Peter is the president of hockey operations and general manager. I've had a discussion with Craig McTavish. In fairness, Peter has not had that time. We just signed the contract early this morning. Just so we're clear with Kevin Lowe, everyone in the organization will report up to myself, but I am the CEO and vice chair. There's 2 vice chairs of this organization. They're Bob Nicholson and Kevin Lowe. And there's 1 chairman, Darryl Cates. So when you look at how we will operate within the whole OEG, as everything comes up to myself, I'm going to work with Kevin Lowe on a lot of different areas. I know that I look at having Kevin help on the business side, help on the hockey side, and wherever it's best for the organization. My relationship with Kevin goes back a long ways, and we'll be very tight in all of that. And how he'll work on the hockey side more would be really up to Peter.
You asked about challenges, and so at any time, at least in my only other experience in entering a new organization, each organization has their own challenges. I have to make an assessment of where the team is, where the roster fits, where the direction that we're going to go in. I have a certain direction that I want to follow, and that'll apply to the challenges. Like I was part of 7-8 years in Ottawa, where we had a real fast, skilled team. Part of 9 years in Boston, where we had a skilled, heavy team. The game's changing, so it's finding a balance between the two, and that's kind of my objective here. There's a lot of challenges in any organization. There's a lot of areas where you want to get better, and You know, I've been Eastern Conference guy for a while. I know this team. I don't know it great. I know the players, so there's a lot of work to be done from my perspective. You know, there's obviously some areas that have been well chronicled that we're going to have to look at, the goaltending, the back end, the style of play and all that. So there's a lot of them. And I probably don't have enough time to tell you them all. But as I said in my opening address, there's a lot of good things here and exciting things. There's a lot of young legs, complementary players that can really help build a good foundation. And they play fast. I'd like to see them play a little harder. And that'll be a challenge.
Ryan and then John.
Just for clarification, Bob, if you can, just on MacT, is he still with the organization or not? Is that to be determined yet? And then just a quick follow-up for Peter after, if I can.
Definitely, Craig McTavish is still with the organization. As I stated, I chatted to him yesterday and today, and you know, Peter will look forward to talking to him in the next couple of days.
And Peter, sorry to get right to it like this, but Oiler fans are going to want to know this one. One of the trades you made while you were with Boston was moving a good young forward in Tyler Seguin. The Oilers have lots of good young franchise-type forwards too. As you sit there today, how do you feel about that trade, and how does that experience maybe affect what you might do with some of these young crop of good forwards you have?
I've actually made a few trades of good young forwards, so that's something that I won't shy away from. That was a trade that had underlying reasons that I won't get into, but he's a terrific player. He was our leading scorer, and that's what I'll say about that one. In this business, you can't be afraid to make trades. Like the way that the parity is developing, the way that the cap is closing in, the margins are really small, so you have to. Those are ways to improve your team. So I'm not afraid of doing it. It has to be the right moment. There are some very good young players on this team. Doesn't mean that I'm going to trade any of them, but those are deals that you can't be afraid to make. They have to be well measured. You have to be well informed. That deal was, you know, obviously he's a very good player, and there were reasons for doing it.
John and then Jason.
This is for Peter. I'm over here. Two kind of timeline things. You've been involved with the development of two NHL organizations in a fairly significant, obviously very significant way. Where would you situate this team on the cycle of success? That's first. And second of all, what's the timeline to install a head coach?
The first part was a good question. It's going in, being part of Ottawa was the start of my career, and they had, I think when I can't remember if we made the playoffs the year before or my first year. They made the playoffs the whole time. There was a lot of young players, not unlike here. There were some star players. There's a lot of similarities, probably more to that one than to Boston. Boston had been, well, they were at the bottom too. There were some good pieces. There's, you know, Bergeron and you know, the drafts, Lucic, Krejci, and guys like that. Obviously, the goaltender was really came into his own with Tim Thomas, and then Tuukka Rask. I would say it's more probably like Ottawa, just because there was probably more young players that were kind of getting into their own and becoming mature players. But as I said earlier, I really think there's, you know, I think it's kind of right in the middle, because in Boston we had to add a lot of pieces. I don't think that's the case here. But here it's like, it's about the next stage of their development. There's some young kids that you know, they have to be, you know, put in their proper places, either here or in other leagues. And you know, I talk about a measured approach. Like, there's not, you know, it's not like we got to get there and we got to get there in a year. I think there's a real lot of good pieces. It just has to be not methodical, but measured, and we got to go through the right steps. Your other part. Oh, I don't know. You know, like, I have to talk to Todd, and then and I can't give you a timeline. Like, you know, ideally I'd like to have it all tied up in a bow before the draft, but my to-do list is pretty big right now.
Jason and Dean.
Guys, I got one for each of you. First, Bob, was this something you'd thought about? Were you planning on making a GM change, or did it all change when Boston made the decision to let Peter go?
No, you know what, this is something, I've been looking at the whole organization, and, you know, when the opportunity to be able to talk to Peter became available, you know, I certainly reached out very quickly to do that, and then it took off and we went through this process in the last few days.
Peter, I know you just got the job, but for the last few years, there's been a lot of talk about hope, and this team will improve with all the young players, and there really hasn't been any tangible improvement in the standings. You mentioned how you see they play fast, you'd like them to play harder. How do you instill that? Is that a philosophy you're going to want from a coach? How do you go about getting that in your organization?
Well, you have to come at that from a bunch of different angles, whether it's player personnel, right? Just simply hard players. Players are hard to find, so it's about the attitude and the the heaviness, for lack of a better word, whether it's a heavy stick, whether it's a heavy player. And there are teams that don't have hard, heavy players, but they play heavy. They're strong in their stick. So that's something that you have to instill. And I know, listen, I've seen the progression here in past years, and talking to MacT, and like they've been trying to get bigger and heavier. And so I see that, and that certainly is an area where I would like to improve. But I don't think you can just be focused on player personnel. There has to be a real kind of instilling. And you probably, there are teams, I won't name them, but you probably know them. There are teams that aren't necessarily hard and heavy, but they strip pucks. They're hard on battles. They win more, share their battles. They're 50-50 battles are won all the time. And they're heavy. They're heavy, but, they're not huge. And a lot of that has to do with the coach. And a lot of that has to do with the philosophy of the organization. And that's part of what I hope to instill.
Dean and then Min.
Bob, question for you. Were there things that Craig did or didn't do, which are the reasons why you made this change at GM?
No, I think one of the key things is I know Peter very well, and when Peter became available, he was certainly a person that we wanted to talk to. Kevin and myself talked about it because of our relationship with Peter through the Olympic program, and as we go forward, we'll continue to talk to MacT here over the next couple of days.
Min.
Bob, question about the lottery and winning it. How much of an impact, if any, did that have on expediting some of the changes this week, or is this something that's been happening that you've been working on for a number of months?
As we all know, that was a pretty special moment to win the lottery, but no, it was a planned out approach here. As I stated before, Darryl had asked me to come in and look at the overall organization, and the season ended, and so this was just part of the process, and really fortunate that we're being able to announce this quickly, and there's going to be a lot of other announcements as we go forward within OEG, a lot on the business side, and I know everyone's looking forward to that.